Crossovers are all the rage nowadays. Whether it's actually really cool stuff like every Spider-Man in the same movie, or thoughtless brain-dead slop like Rick and the Xenomorph running around an ill-advised Martin Luther King Day event in Fortnite. Or even that one movie with the one guy with the very long legs. In fact, Transformers are not even a stranger to crossovers in the first place. Whether it's actually really cool, like the G.I. Joe versus the Transformers, or the Transformers versus Terminator, or stinky garbage from a butt, like the Avengers versus Transformers. What a mess. But with pop culture being what it is, it was only a matter of time before they introduced Transformers that started to turn into famous vehicles from movies and cartoons. And on that note, I'd like to present Back to the Future Collaborative Gigawatt. The crossovers line is a bit of a microcosm of Transformers crossovers in general. Some of them are really awesome, like Gigawatt here, the Jurassic Park set. And some of them are just horrible looking, like the Top Gun one. But hey, even the bad ones are a big improvement over those horrific Marvel and Star Wars Transformers from the mid-aughts. And they're planning some G.I. Joe Transformers crossovers that look like a time and a half. But that's enough prattle. Let's get to the stuff you came here for. Gigawatt here is a pretty rare thing in modern Transformers toy lines, an entirely new character. And while he is just the DeLorean if it was a robot, he has a little bit more character to him than you might think. He's definitely more than just a blurb on the back of a box. Gigawatt's story is told in the Transformers X Back to the Future comic by IEW. It's a great miniseries, and at only 4 issues, it's a definite recommend for me. It tells the story of Rumble accidentally going to the future and finding Doc Brown, who he helps fix the DeLorean. He befriends him just long enough to steal the DeLorean like an open world game protagonist, and then goes back to 1984 to help the Decepticons get the leg up before they awaken from the Ark. This leads to a nightmare future in 2015 where the Decepticons completely take over and pretty much all the Autobots are dead. A young Decepticon Gigawatt has had enough of Megatron's shenanigans, so he goes back to the future to find Marty McFly and set everything straight. Like I said, it's a great read. Okay, before we go any further, we have to acknowledge that this guy is a very heavy retool of the Siege Sideswipe mold. In fact, when it was announced, the robot mode looked so similar, I thought it was supposed to be Sideswipe that had rescanned the DeLorean and changed his alt mode. I think they do a really good job of differentiating these two from each other, though. In vehicle mode, it's almost impossible to tell that these two share the same robot skeleton. No, wait, that's a different cross. If you're making a Transformer that transforms into something from Back to the Future, there's really only one choice as far as alt mode goes. You gotta go with the DeLorean, and boy is it a nice one. Whether it's burning twin trails down asphalt or hosting a thoroughly uninterested Grum, it's a beauty of a car. The DeLorean is just an awesome car anyway. It would have looked fine if it was just a normal DeLorean, but the fact they added all the Back to the Future cool sci-fi bits only increases the visual impact. The paint job is nice and clean, no splotches and defects that my eyes can detect. Details on this thing are insane, and to make it even better, they're almost all painted. Seriously, look at the cool sci-fi junk in the trunk here. They would have looked cool anyway, but the fact that they spent a little bit extra to pick them out with paint goes a long way. The only real flaw that I can think of is the glossy black paint they used for the boosters. It kind of breaks up the sculpt a little, but not in a way that's too distracting. No QC issues to speak of. Front wheels pop off a little easier than I'd like, but they do have to be able to hinge and rotate. And I'd rather them pop off than snap. And they do go back in just as easily as they came out. Speaking of wheels, this baby can roll. Sure, he might not be going past 88 miles per hour, so we won't be seeing any real shit. But since he's a toy, I think we can deal with this I think we can accept a heaping helping of simulated shit. Most of the accessories are actually better served in this mode. The lightning rod and Mr. Fusion reactor are definitely designed for the DeLorean. The gun also fits under the hood quite snugly. They put a lot of love into the vehicle mode and it really shows. Of course, you can pop the doors open in the iconic DeLorean fashion. Not really enough room for anybody to sit in there, though. As if that wasn't cool enough, you can also flip the wheels down and pop the Mr. Fusion reactor on for an awesome hovercar mode from the second movie. That's attention to detail. Also, I said earlier that the front wheels detach too easily, but I think I was thinking of the back wheels. That's odd. Maybe the Mandela effect? The transformation is basically the same as Sideswipe, with a handful of differences to account for the different vehicle mode. You basically flip the thighs out of the legs, flip the arms out of the chest, fold the chest down, clip it into place with the arms. It's a nice, satisfying little transformation. The only minor hitch in the transformation is this awesome chest panel. It does have just enough room to flip out, but I'm very paranoid about Gigawatt's head scraping off the really nice tampo detail on it. So far, it hasn't shown any signs of scratching, but still, I hope it stands the test of time. That is a nice looking robot. Yeah, maybe he's a little broad in the chest compared to Sideswipe, and the wings don't do much in the robot mode, And even worse, if you look at it from the side, he seems almost completely hollow. But it's not enough to bring down a really nice design. The flux capacitor details on his knees are a nice touch, but nothing compares to the beautiful flux capacitor on his chest. I almost wonder if you could display this in vehicle mode as well. I haven't been brave enough to try it. I mentioned about how paranoid I was about it earlier. The nice light blue paint they used reminds me of Allspark blue, and it's the same color as Gigawatt's eyes. Speaking of eyes, I love his head sculpt. He even has little goggles. What's up, Four Eyes? I'm so glad they went with a nice premium silver paint instead of the dull gray they tend to use on Megatron figures. It definitely would have made him feel like a cheaper product. His forearms, thighs, and crotch could have used new sculpted detail to set him apart even more from Sideswipe, but they don't look bad or anything. In fact, the color kind of makes it look like he's wearing black stocking and those sleeve things that goths used to wear. His articulation is about what you'd expect from more for Cybertron era figure. He's got it all. Waist swivel, ankle tilts. The only thing he's really missing is a little bit of wrist action, but he doesn't feel like he's missing it too badly. The only thing I don't like about this articulation is his head is a little limited. The fact that it's set so low on his torso kind of makes it look like he's wearing a little scarf or something to cover up his face. Now you know how we've felt for the last 2 years. I'm sorry, Gigawatt, it's not your fault. The gear for the vehicle can also be used on the robot mode to somewhat mixed results. Of course the gun looks fine, but the lightning rod doesn't really look like anything. I guess it could be some kind of whip weapon? Mostly it just looks like Hot Rod's fishing rod. I'm supposed to attach the Mr. Fusion reactor in the back of the blaster like it's a canister or something, but I just can't get it to stay on. Since he's a remold of Sideswipe, he does have a lot of combat ports from the Siege era of the War for Cybertron toy line. He's not really much of a fighter, though. I can't really imagine him festooned with weaponizer parts. I can more see him, equipped with some of Ratchet's gear hanging out with Perceptor. Another delightful treat. The collaborative line is definitely one to keep an eye on. With some iconic movie vehicles turned into full-fledged robots, and Dracula, we Transformers heads have a lot to look forward to in the future. We'll be watching its crew with great interest. Fraz out.